Right now, inside your body, there's a war going on, and most people don't even know it. It's not dramatic. It doesn't hurt in any obvious way. But chronic low-grade inflammation quietly sits at the root of nearly every major modern health challenge doctors are scrambling to address. Joint pain, brain fog, fatigue that sleep doesn't fix, digestive issues that come and go for no clear reason. Scientists now believe this invisible fire is one of the primary drivers of aging itself. And yet, for thousands of years before pharmaceutical companies existed, indigenous healers, mountain herbalists, and ancestral medicine traditions around the world were putting out that fire. With plants. Not pills. Not patents. Plants that grew wild in forests, along creek beds in high desert valleys, and yes, possibly right in your own backyard. Today we're covering 20 of those plants. Some you'll recognize immediately. Others have been quietly erased from mainstream awareness. A few of them, ancient civilizations literally went to war to control. By the end, you'll have an entire ancestral anti-inflammatory toolkit, and the knowledge to actually use it. Let's start with the plant that gave us aspirin, not the other way around. White willow bark has been used medicinally for over 3,500 years. Ancient Egyptian physicians recorded it on papyrus. Hippocrates, the father of Western medicine, prescribed it to patients with fever and joint pain. Native American healers from multiple tribes brewed it as tea for headaches and inflammatory pain long before European settlers arrived. What makes white willow so powerful is a compound called salicin, the natural precursor to the synthetic salicylic acid that eventually became aspirin. The difference is that white willow releases salicin slowly, which many practitioners believe leads to gentler, longer-lasting effects with less stomach irritation. Studies suggest it may help reduce lower back pain, knee discomfort, and general inflammatory response. You can find white willow bark as a dried herb, tincture, or capsule at most health food stores. Brew the dried bark as a tea, about 1 teaspoon per cup of hot water, simmered for 10 minutes, or use a standardized extract. Important note, like aspirin, white willow can interact with blood thinners, so consult your doctor if that applies to you. From bark to root, turmeric is next, and if you've spent any time in the natural health world, you've heard the name. But here's what most people don't tell you. The tradition behind this golden root stretches back over 4,000 years in Ayurvedic medicine, one of the world's oldest documented healing systems. In ancient India, turmeric wasn't just medicine. It was sacred. It was used in spiritual rituals, worn on the skin, and given to warriors before battle to reduce swelling from wounds. The active compound, curcumin, has been the subject of thousands of modern scientific studies, and the results are consistent. Curcumin may help reduce levels of inflammatory markers in the body and support joint comfort in people dealing with conditions like arthritis. The challenge is absorption. Curcumin on its own doesn't absorb well. But here's the ancestral trick that science has validated. Combine it with black pepper. The piperine in black pepper increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. Our ancestors were doing this by instinct. Now we know why it works. Add turmeric and black pepper to golden milk, soups, rice dishes, or take it as a supplement that already includes piperine. Stay close to turmeric's geographic roots, and you'll find ginger growing alongside it. And ginger deserves its own moment. This knobby, pungent root has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for over 2,500 years, in Ayurveda for just as long, and in West African folk healing traditions that carried across the Atlantic with enslaved people who refused to let their knowledge disappear. Ginger contains compounds called gingerols and shogaols that research suggests may help reduce inflammatory cytokines, essentially the chemical messengers that tell your body to stay inflamed. Multiple studies have examined ginger's potential to support joint comfort and digestive ease. It's one of the most accessible healing plants on Earth. You can grow ginger in a pot on a sunny windowsill, even in a small apartment. You can buy it fresh at any grocery store for almost nothing. Steep fresh slices in hot water for a tea, blend it into smoothies, grate it into stir-fries. There are almost no barriers to making ginger a daily part of your life, Now here's one that sounds exotic, but has roots in some of the most ancient healing traditions in human history. Boswellia, also called Indian frankincense, comes from the resin of a tree native to India, the Arabian Peninsula, and parts of Africa. For over 5,000 years, this resin has been used in Ayurvedic medicine specifically for joint and inflammatory conditions. And number 14 on this list? We'll get there, but Boswellia has something remarkable in common with it. Both were traded along ancient spice routes, both appear in sacred texts, and both have shown up in modern clinical research with results that pharmaceutical companies take very seriously. The active compounds in Boswellia, called boswellic acids, are studied for their potential to inhibit a specific enzyme involved in inflammation, one that contributes significantly to joint degradation. Research suggests Boswellia extract may help support knee comfort and mobility. You won't find Boswellia growing in a backyard garden in most of North America, but standardized Boswellia extract supplements are widely available and generally affordable. Before we leave the most recognizable herbs behind, we need to talk about yarrow. And this one comes with a story. During the American Civil War, field medics called yarrow soldier's woundwort. Before that, the Ojibwe, Cherokee, and dozens of other Native American nations used it to clean and soothe wounds, reduce fever, and address inflammation from infections. Its botanical name, Achillea millefolium, literally references the Greek hero Achilles, who was said to use yarrow on the wounds of his soldiers at Troy. Yarrow contains flavonoids and sesquiterpene lactones that researchers believe may help support the body's inflammatory response, particularly around wounds and infections. The plant itself grows wild across most of North America and is easy to cultivate. The feathery leaves and white or yellow flower clusters are unmistakable once you learn to recognize them. You can dry the flowers and leaves to make tea, create a simple oil infusion for topical use, or find it as a tincture. It's one of those plants that once you start seeing it, you see it everywhere. Before we go further, I want to ask you something. How many of these have you already had in your kitchen, in your garden, or growing wild near your home? 18. And didn't know what you were looking at? Because here's the truth. This knowledge didn't disappear. It just got buried. And every single herb on this list is accessible to you right now. Keep watching, because what's coming next gets even more powerful, and a few of these changed the course of history. Now, we're heading into territory most people never find. The herbs that healers kept close and rarely shared with outsiders. Devil's claw sounds like something from a Gothic novel, but it's a desert plant native to southern Africa, specifically the Kalahari. And the San people, one of the world's oldest indigenous cultures, have used it for centuries to address pain, fever, and digestive inflammation. The plant gets its dramatic name from its hooked fruit, which can attach to the feet of animals and cause injury. The root, however, is where the medicine lives. It contains iridoid glycosides, particularly harpagoside, which multiple studies suggest may support joint comfort, especially in the lower back and knees. Some European clinical research has compared its effects favorably to conventional pain relievers for chronic lower back discomfort. Devil's Claw is available as a supplement, tea, or tincture in most health food stores. It's generally not recommended during pregnancy, or for people with gallstones or peptic ulcers, so take that into account. Moving north to the rainforests of Peru and the Amazon basin, cat's claw, or una de gato, has been used by indigenous Amazonian healers for at least 2,000 years to address inflammation, arthritis, and immune challenges. The plant's thorns curve like a cat's claw, giving it its vivid name. Oxindole alkaloids in the bark and root have attracted significant scientific attention, with studies suggesting possible anti-inflammatory and immune-modulating effects. Peruvian traditional healers traditionally prepared it as a long, slow-simmered bark tea. Today, you can find it as a tea, tincture, or capsule. A small but important safety note: cat's claw may interact with blood pressure medications and anticoagulants, and isn't recommended during pregnancy or for people with autoimmune conditions without medical supervision. Not far from where aspirin's story begins geographically, in the meadows of medieval Europe, grows meadowsweet. This soft, honey-scented wildflower was so revered by the Druids that it was considered one of 3 sacred herbs, alongside watermint and vervain. Medieval herbalists brewed it for fevers, joint aches, and stomach complaints. And here's the historical footnote that changes everything. The same salicylic compounds found in white willow bark appear in meadowsweet, and it was actually the study of meadowsweet that led 19th century chemists toward synthesizing aspirin. The name aspirin itself is derived in part from an old botanical name for meadowsweet. So in a very real sense, this gentle wildflower is the grandmother of the most used drug in human history. Meadowsweet tea has a pleasant, slightly sweet flavor. It grows easily in damp garden areas or can be found dried at herbal suppliers. Same caution applies as with willow bark regarding blood thinners and salicylate sensitivity. Black cohosh carries deep roots in Native American healing, particularly among the Cherokee and Algonquin peoples, who used it for a wide range of conditions, including inflammatory joint pain, menstrual discomfort, and rheumatic conditions. It was one of the first Native American herbs to be formally adopted by 19th century American physicians and appeared in the U.S. Pharmacopoeia for decades. Modern research has focused heavily on its effects on hormonal and menopausal symptoms, but the underlying mechanisms involve anti-inflammatory pathways. Studies suggest black cohosh may help support comfort in joints and muscles, particularly for women navigating hormonal transitions. It's best used in standardized extract form, not recommended during pregnancy, and long-term use should be discussed with a healthcare provider, particularly regarding liver health. Stinging nettle has one of the most ironic origin stories in the plant world. The very thing that causes a sting when you brush against it raw, formic acid and histamine compounds, may actually help quiet inflammatory processes when the plant is properly prepared. For centuries, European and Native American healers used nettle to address joint pain, seasonal allergies, and urinary health. Some traditional practitioners even deliberately used the raw stinging of fresh nettles against arthritic joints, a practice called urtication, believing it triggered a healing response. Modern research has focused on nettle leaf extract's potential to modulate inflammatory markers, including histamine and prostaglandins. Freeze-dried nettle capsules are the most studied form. You can also cook young nettle leaves as you would spinach. Cooking neutralizes the sting completely, and if you live in a temperate climate, nettle almost certainly grows nearby. It's considered a weed by most people. Now you know better. Tart cherry might be the most delicious thing on this entire list, and it rounds out this section beautifully. Long before it was marketed as a superfood, Montmorency tart cherries were a staple harvest food in Central Europe and were used by 19th century American country healers for gout, one of the most acutely painful inflammatory joint conditions known. Modern research has caught up impressively. Studies involving athletes suggest tart cherry may help reduce exercise-induced muscle soreness and inflammation. Research has also explored its potential role in supporting sleep and uric acid levels, which relates directly to gout. Tart cherry juice is available at most grocery stores. Tart cherry extract in capsule form is concentrated and convenient. This is one of those cases where the medicine tastes like dessert. Pause for a second and think about what you've already learned. 6 ancient cultures, 3 continents, thousands of years of accumulated wisdom, and modern science is catching up and confirming what healers already knew. You're not just learning a list. You're rebuilding something that got taken away. Keep going. The next section includes plants that empires fought over. Number 12 is one that ancient Sanskrit texts called the incomparable one. And once you hear what it does, you'll understand why. Holy basil, known in India as tulsi, is one of the most revered plants in the Ayurvedic tradition, worshipped in Hindu households, mentioned in sacred texts going back over 3,000 years, and grown in temple courtyards as a living symbol of divine protection. The spiritual reverence, it turns out, wasn't just symbolic. Tulsi contains eugenol, rosmarinic acid, and a range of flavonoids that researchers have studied for anti-inflammatory, adaptogenic, and stress-modulating effects. In a world where stress and inflammation feed each other in a destructive cycle, an herb that addresses both simultaneously is extraordinary. Studies suggest holy basil may help support cortisol regulation and reduce oxidative stress markers. It grows easily in warm climates and can thrive in a container on a sunny porch or windowsill. Tulsi tea has a slightly clove-like aromatic flavor and is one of the most widely available herbal teas in the world. True frankincense, Boswellia sacra, deserves a second mention here as a bridge between the sacred and the scientific. While we covered Boswellia's anti-inflammatory compounds earlier, the historical weight of frankincense is worth sitting with. This resin was more valuable than gold in the ancient world. It appears in the Bible, the Torah, and Islamic medical texts. Egyptian priests used it in sacred rites. Roman soldiers carried it. Trade routes were carved across deserts specifically to move this resin from southern Arabia and the Horn of Africa to the Mediterranean world. The city of Ubar, the so-called Atlantis of the Sands, was a major frankincense trading hub, lost to the desert for centuries before archaeologists rediscovered it in the 1990s. Civilizations didn't just value frankincense for its spiritual symbolism, they valued it because it worked. Burn-grade frankincense resin can be found at specialty incense shops. Medicinal-grade Boswellia extract supplements are widely available. The same plant. Thousands of years. Still working. Thunder God Vine. Tripterygium wilfordi. Sounds dramatic because its history is dramatic. This climbing vine, native to China and Taiwan, has been used in traditional Chinese medicine for over 400 years to address inflammatory and autoimmune conditions, particularly those affecting the joints and skin. It's one of the more potent herbs on this list, and with potency comes responsibility. The compounds in Thunder God Vine, particularly triptolide, have attracted serious attention from pharmaceutical researchers for their effects on inflammatory pathways. Studies have shown effects that some researchers describe as comparable to methotrexate, a powerful pharmaceutical for certain inflammatory joint conditions. This is not a casual backyard herb tea. This is one to approach with guidance from a qualified herbalist or integrative physician. It's included here because of its remarkable history and the serious scientific attention it's received. Not as a DIY recommendation. Skullcap might look like a humble wildflower growing along North American streambanks, but the Iroquois and other eastern woodland nations treated it as one of their most important medicinal plants. It was used for nervous system complaints, inflammatory conditions, and as part of ceremonial healing practices. 19th century American herbalists called it mad dog skullcap because of its use in treating fever and convulsions. The active compounds, particularly bicolin and scutelarane, have been studied for antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, and neuroprotective effects. Research suggests skullcap may help support a calm nervous system response, which matters because chronic stress keeps inflammatory pathways active. Skullcap tea is pleasant and mild. It grows relatively easily in moist, partially shaded garden spaces. The dried herb and tincture are widely available. This is one of those quietly powerful plants that doesn't get nearly the attention it deserves. Feverfew has one of the most specific and well-documented traditional uses of any herb on this list: migraines. Medieval monks in European monasteries cultivated feverfew in their physic gardens specifically for headache and fever. It appears in Nicholas Culpeper's 17th century Herbal as a remedy for all pains of the head. The name itself tells you what people used it for. What's remarkable is that modern clinical research has actually confirmed significant traditional uses. Multiple studies suggest that regular feverfew supplementation may help reduce the frequency of migraines, possibly by modulating inflammatory processes involving prostaglandins and serotonin. The mechanism isn't fully understood, but the results have been consistent enough that feverfew is one of the few traditional herbs to be formally evaluated by major medical bodies. Feverfew grows easily in most temperate gardens and is actually quite pretty. It resembles small daisies with cheerful yellow centers. The fresh or dried leaf can be taken as a tea or found in standardized tablet form. Ashwagandha closes this section, and it does so with the weight of perhaps the longest continuous medical tradition of any plant on this entire list. Ashwagandha appears in Ayurvedic medical texts going back 6,000 years, making it one of the oldest documented medicinal plants in human history. The name means smell of horse in Sanskrit, both for its distinctive aroma and the traditional belief that it would give users the strength and vitality of a horse. Modern research has focused heavily on its adaptogenic properties, its ability to help the body regulate stress responses. But inflammation and stress are deeply intertwined systems. Elevated cortisol drives inflammatory pathways. Ashwagandhas with analyte compounds have been studied for effects on cortisol levels, inflammatory markers, and even muscle recovery. Studies suggest it may help support energy, stress resilience, and joint comfort. Ashwagandha root powder can be stirred into warm milk, a traditional preparation called ashwagandha milk, or taken in capsule form. It's widely available, affordable, and gentle enough for most people for long-term use. Everything we've covered so far has been powerful. But these last three, they might be growing 10 feet from your front door right now. Broadleaf plantain, not the tropical banana relative, but the common weed Plantago major, is probably the most universally overlooked medicinal plant in the northern hemisphere. It grows in every lawn, every gravel driveway edge, every disturbed soil, area across North America, Europe, and most temperate regions on Earth. Native American healers from dozens of nations used it for everything from wound healing to respiratory inflammation to digestive complaints. When European colonists arrived, they found plantain growing alongside indigenous settlement areas and called it white man's footprint because it spread wherever Europeans walked, carried in the soles of their boots. Both groups recognized it as medicine. The leaves contain aucubin and allantoin, compounds studied for anti-inflammatory, wound healing, and soothing properties. Bruised fresh leaves can be applied directly to insect stings and minor skin irritations for quick relief. A simple leaf tea may support respiratory comfort and digestive ease. Once you can identify plantain, and it's one of the easiest plants to identify, you will never look at a lawn the same way again. Elderberry has experienced a remarkable cultural comeback in the last decade, but its roots go back much further than the trendy syrup bottles at health food stores. The elder tree, Sambucus nigra, was so revered in European folk medicine that it was sometimes called the medicine chest of the country people. Every part was used: the flowers for fever and inflammation, the leaves for topical compresses, the berries for immune support, and as an antioxidant food source. Ancient Egyptians used elderflowers to improve complexion and treat burns. Medieval healers planted elders near the house as protection against illness. Native American traditions independently recognized elderberry as powerful medicine. Modern research has focused primarily on elderberry's effects on immune function and antiviral activity, but the anthocyanins in the berries are among the most potent anti-inflammatory antioxidants found in any common fruit. You can grow an elderberry shrub in almost any temperate backyard. It's fast-growing, wildlife-friendly, and incredibly productive. Elderberry syrup is easy to make at home with dried elderberries, water, raw honey, and spices. This is living ancestral wisdom that you can pass to your children. And finally, rosemary. The herb sitting in a small pot on millions of kitchen windowsills, used to season roast chicken on Sunday afternoons, probably not considered medicine by most people who grow it. But rosemary has been documented as a medicinal plant since ancient Greece and Rome. It appears in the writings of Greek physicians, in medieval European monastic herb gardens, in North African traditional medicine, and in indigenous use, among cultures where it grew wild around the Mediterranean. Rosmarinic acid, named directly after rosemary, is one of the most studied natural anti-inflammatory compounds in any culinary herb. Research suggests it may help support brain health, circulatory function, and reduce oxidative stress. Rosemary essential oil has been studied for topical, anti-inflammatory effects when diluted appropriately in a carrier oil. And the fresh or dried herb used generously in cooking delivers rosmarinic acid, along with carnosic acid and other protective compounds with every meal. The most accessible herb on this list, growing in your kitchen, waiting for you to take it seriously. Your ancestors didn't have pharmacies. They had something better. They had thousands of years of careful observation, trial and error, passed down through generations, stored in the knowledge of healers and grandmothers and medicine people who paid attention to what worked. Science didn't invent these plants. Science is finally catching up to them. What we've covered today: white willow, turmeric, ginger, boswellia, yarrow, devil's claw, cat's claw, meadowsweet, black cohosh, stinging nettle, tart cherry, holy basil, frankincense, thunder god vine, skullcap, feverfew, ashwagandha, plantain, elderberry, and rosemary. These aren't exotic curiosities. They're a living pharmacopoeia that grew around human settlements because people needed them, used them, and kept using them across millennia because they worked. You don't need to use all 20 at once. Start with one. Maybe the ginger already in your kitchen. Maybe the plantain in your yard that you've been pulling up as a weed. Maybe a cup of tulsi tea before bed tonight. Small steps build lasting habits, and lasting habits change your health over years. Remember, work with a knowledgeable healthcare provider when exploring herbal approaches, especially if you have existing conditions or take medications. This knowledge is yours to reclaim, and reclaiming it responsibly is what makes it powerful. If this video gave you something valuable, share it with someone you care about. There's someone in your life who needs this information right now. And if you want to go deeper on any of these plants, yes, growing them, preparing them, combining them, leave a comment below and let me know where to take this next. The knowledge didn't disappear. It was just waiting for you to come find it.